What is going on YouTube? This is Acid Roots Wired. So this is part 20 of the Devil May Cry walkthrough. So in this particular episode we're going to get further into mission 12, which I actually figured out pretty quickly that the swimming part of this particular mission was really not that difficult. All you really have to do when you get to that swimming segment where there's that enemy that attacks you is just swim to the surface. It's really like I was making a lot more of a deal out of it than what I just figured with the controls, the way that they show you this here, that just meant that most of this mission was going to be swimming or something like that. I think eventually there probably will be some swimming stuff, but really it was not that. I mean, you're only in the water for probably like 4 or 5 seconds if you swim right to the top. So it's really, I mean, like it's recommended obviously to get the needle gun in this episode, which I do, but just on top of that, there's really not that much swimming whatsoever to really contend with here. So it's just kind of a misnomer, but that's fine. I look after it. The swimming controls are not as bad as I was saying in the last episode. They're really not that much of a deal. Just have to use the triangle button to swim around as far as those fairies can happen. So it's a good concept there, is being able to say. But the main thing about this particular episode, which is going to be the most depiction of the next episode, I went ahead and recorded some more of the episodes after this one, and basically getting out of mission 12. And the thing about it is most of this episode consists of a boss fight that was kind of a pain in the ass, but I do also kind of blame the concept of what I was doing just because I need to stack up on green orbs. I just would kind of feel like, I've noticed that the bosses in this particular game, you have to kind of have more than just Dante's usual health to be able to contend with them, because usually they're stronger than Dante, but it is the pitch that you have to have a little bit of extra health, just because sometimes their attacks are a little bit, more cumbersome, or at least more annoyingly so. And this is that's what happened here, is the attacks that this enemy that you're going to fight, just for one thing, it's a flying enemy, being on a ship where you don't get a lot of ability. Like you fight this boss, you fought this boss before, but at least when it was on land before, it was a little bit easier to kind of avoid some of those type of attacks. But this is kind of the worst case scenario for fighting this particular boss, because it takes Dante to and fro on this particular ship, and it just doesn't work that well. Just look after it. So that's just kind of the concept. So this was really, this is a pretty awesome type of concept to have within this particular game, just the fear behind as to how some of these situations kind of happen. But I just look after it, just kind of within the context that, it was a good sequence within the game, but it just the pitch that it kind of, the aspect behind it is, you have to, deal with the diciness of still the concept of being on the ship the whole time. You just need more room than what you're able to work with here. So it does work for some good cinematics, but it is kind of within the aspect that it is kind of within the fray. So I just talk about other things. I was kind of thinking about some of these M&M leaks that were coming out just within the pitch behind it. I had a previous recording segment that I tried to record talking about it, and it's just kind of within the pitch. I feel like, I do want to get to straight from the Lab 3, some of those type of ones. There's some M&M stuff that's on the way in terms of unreleased type stuff. Jackal Goldkick had talked with me about a particular M&M unreleased album, not so much like something he officially did, but just within the concept of a mixtape almost, sort of that kind of has some of that type of appeal. So I'm going to get to some of those. So there is more M&M if you are tuned into my Acid Roots music channel from my main channel. There is I've reviewed everything by M&M, all the way from Infinite all the way to the death of Slim Shady. But I am going to get to some more of this unreleased type stuff, because there's some good bounties here. Even managed to find some extra stuff just in the mixtape type era. So it's just a good concept there to be able to get that. I'm really trying to scour mixtape type formats to kind of get to some of these. It's a good pitch because it is unfortunate within a relative sense that Eminem does not have the most common kind of joy about his unreleased music, but I think it's just kind of the concept that it just has to have the right approach about it, and that's what I've kind of noticed as far as those particular tones going to go, is just when I look after it, No Life Shaq, who's kind of a big reaction channel, was not able to really react to them because he's huge enough to the point where the Eminem team knows who he is and asked him not to do it. But I just look at it, I have seen some music channels that have at least critiqued some of that type of stuff, so it's just within the pitch. But it's the only thing about being a big channel. I've kind of had that contemplation about how large I want Acid Roots Music and Acid Roots Wired to get, because I would like to review some of those. It'd be I probably would, I don't want to say full blown take offense in terms of it being hateful towards Eminem, but I would be kind of disappointed if I were to not be able to review some of that music, because it is good stuff, and you'd have to choose between being Eminem's friend and not reviewing music that's just really awesome. And I think that's not necessarily the best decision. You know, No Life Shack chose to stay on Eminem's good side as opposed to reviewing the music and then having a falling out with him. And this is kind of the pitch behind it. That's kind of the concept. This is not like the best decision. You know, you could imagine if like Dr. Dre did that sort of stuff, if there was like a detox mixtape or something like that, and you have to choose. I mean, most people are going to choose, if you are friends with the billionaire, it's not to say like that to use Dr. Dre, but if you're friends with the billionaire, chances are you're not going to offend the billionaire to do something for that particular task. But this is kind of the concept as far as saying that you just would look after it that. You know, particularly, I think, you know, a lot of times anything Eminem kind of does, Dr. Dre is going to echo too. So if there really was like a detox mixtape out there, it probably wouldn't be within the best commonplace, because Dr. Dre probably would not really take kindly to it. It's just kind of within the pitch. But it is, I guarantee that, you know, the concept of reviewing straight from the Lab 3, I probably would estimate it probably get over a 9 out of 10 or even a 10 out of 10. I just would say it'd get pretty much classic score. There's just some pitches in there just being able to say that, but this is within the tone that, you know, I mean, the music needs to be critiqued. I mean, I think even that sort of stuff, if Eminem were to actually somehow get a hold of some of those reviews and say, oh, well, yeah, I'm glad that people are liking this, but, you know, this kind of happens within that aspect as far as really going along with it. That's the tone behind that particular affair. This question, I mean, I don't think I have to worry about it because I only have 2 or 3 digits worth of subscribers on these channels, but it's just within the pitch that, you know, just having to make those decisions, you know, it probably it has to be kind of dicey for someone like No Life Shack, who probably could. I mean, he probably really did like those songs, but, you know, it's just too bad that Eminem doesn't realize that, hey, you know, people are having to choose between you and something that's amazing. That's the concept behind it. It's not, you know, it's not a simple decision. It's not just like some, you know, you get the idea. It's not a 1 out of 10 in terms of difficulty kind of decision. You know, it's just kind of the pitch behind it. But that's the reality. So the vast majority of this particular episode is just going to be, I still was kind of tricked as far as trying to figure out what to do here, but really all you have to do is just go talk to that ghost store. I don't know what it meant by protect the ship. I kind of saw, like, the person who I watched the walkthrough of this, it kind of said that, like, apparently the ship can take damage somehow, something like that. I know that the boss character lands on the ship and he might actually take damage as far as the character. Something that kind of went along with it. Not really as full-bound sure, but I just used the ebony and ivory guns and just kept shooting them. That's the best prospect to be able to get done with this particular boss fight the easiest, because otherwise you have to really have like the finaglement of knowing what to aptly kind of do about this. And then this is kind of the concept. This boss fight was just not conducive. This whole mission was just kind of like out of sorts. I mean, the previous one that I did was not as bad, but this one is just too confined, too restricted, too much cabin fever within those aspects, and the boss fight was just the worst case scenario. If it had just been something that would have stayed on the ship and would have jumped around like something like a King Kong type something, some sort of gorilla or something like that, you know, just a little bit more, but you'll see what I mean in the next episode. It's just kind of the concept. If you don't know this game, I'd have to say, but it kind of happens to be a thing about it. But yeah, it's just within the pick. So we got a series more missions left, but this next episode, so we don't get out of mission 12 until pretty much episode 22. So episode 21 is going to be finishing up this one. Then mission 13 will be that way from there. So it's just within the pitch behind it. But yeah, for the rate that it's going, depending upon what mission 13 is like, I just question what some of these later ones are going to wind up being like. I wonder how much of a pain that like Virgil's going to be when I fight him. He is like a humanoid like Dante, if you don't know about that, but he's basically just like Dante, just in blue. I think he is Dante's brother or something like that, so it's just within the pitch. But he might be really strong. That is kind of the concept. I'm probably going to have to really stock up on green ores and pitches like that. And I feel like I need to kind of learn some more techniques amongst this game. I just feel like the concept about it, like the damage I'm doing, like there are folks that really go through like the shop and know like the ins and outs of this particular game as far as just being able to like have more lethal and kind of more damaging attacks just to be able to get towards it. And that's just kind of the tone. But yeah, you can use the needle gun here, so it's a good concept. I think it'll probably come in handy later, but it's just kind of within the pitch. But yeah, just saying, just kind of within, within the aspect as far as saying, So yeah, we got that enemy taken care of, but just within the aspect as far as saying, I'm losing track of what I was trying to say here, but yeah, just having more damaging type attacks, just being able to get towards it is just kind of the concept, but yeah. I probably need to look up more than one walkthrough about this particular game. I think that's kind of the fair, because the thing about the person that I've found that did this particular game is he did this game back in 2011, which is just kind of in a more shorter aspect. So obviously, I mean, there's just questions. I mean, when you look after like how to do these particular ones, like this game, like in terms like a full blown where people know exactly what you're thinking, say this is what you need to do inch by inch, millimeter by millimeter. This is kind of within the concept, this is within the tone of that, but it just kind of happens. Let's look after as far as those fairs kind of happen, but so yeah, just trying to figure out as far as the aspects. That's the basic concept about this particular episode here. So there's more on the way as far as those particular aspects going to happen. Just being able to say, like I said, I do have a little bit more recorded for this, but we'll see what happens with Mission 13, some of those type ones down the road. But this within the particular fair is more Devil May Cry on the way. Subscribe for more fun. Thanks for watching. Have a wonderful night. Stick with this playlist, folks. Some good stuff here.